Well, okay, I'm back. Uh, I'll wait for people to find this chat if you can. If you can find this chat, I'm back online. Perhaps I'll have to go back to YouTube and resend this link. What happened was I pulled my mic out, and if you pull your mic out when you move your mic, then I have to redo it from scratch. So I apologize, you guys, for pulling my mic out before I went on. It's very touchy, this mic setup. You can't, if you pull the mic out while you're moving the thing into position, you have to restart the computer. Otherwise, you can't hear it. It's a glitch. It's a glitch in the system. So anyway, what I wanted to say, first of all, welcome all of you imagination connoisseurs. Thank you for being here. All of you, the members of the post-geek singularity community. It is once again I, the notorious RMB here. Before I like turn this over to you guys, I wanted to say thanks. Yesterday, I did of course a chat about Hot Toys figures and action figures and why I love them so much. And it ended up being I thought it would be a quick chat. It ended up being almost 2 hours. And a lot of the people that were here wrote me afterwards. And this was very interesting. A lot of people wrote me. I heard from people that had deeply religious beliefs, and I had people that didn't. But there was a common theme that everybody was thanking me for speaking in such a tolerant, I guess, and open-minded manner. And to me, that was very, very gratifying, because the whole point that I started doing these live streams, and again, it was something that John Schnepp had always encouraged me to do, and do Robservations, which I promise episode 2 is coming, and so will 3 and 4. The Robservations is a real show. These are just live chats. And the Diane Duane interview, one of my favorite Star Trek novelists, it's just taken a lot of time to cut, and I've been doing these and working and all that. But everybody, it was very touching for me to hear that people felt that they felt included here during these live chats. And more than anything else, I attribute that to you guys. Sure, we have the occasional troll here, but I really believe what I say, that every person has a story to tell. All we have to do is listen. I mean, that's something I've believed my whole life, and I'd like to think that's something that my parents instilled in me, because as I've often said, I never heard my parents say a bad word about anybody growing up. And that maybe that rubbed off on me, and certainly my interest in science fiction and Star Trek and things like that. And I've always believed that everybody has something to say, that we can learn from. And it really it makes me happy that we have a community where that's true. And that's kind of what I want Robservations to always be, a place where we can come and discuss our interests. And when I get back that kind of positive feedback from people, it's immensely gratifying. So I want to thank everybody who has written me and who has told me that they appreciated what we were talking about. And it's so funny, because to me, you never know. You start talking about action figures, and you never know where it's going to lead. Now, here's the thing: the Oscars. Man, I love the Oscars. I've loved the Oscars since I was a little kid. And I think the first time, I always remember watching the Oscars, and usually it was something that I did by myself. The Academy Awards were sort of my thing, because nobody was interested in them in my house as much as I was. So most of the time, my parents would flit in and out and watch, but they weren't particularly that interested in the Oscars. But I've always been interested in the Oscars. And the first Oscars I remember watching was the 1976 Oscars, that were giving away the prizes, the Oscar for the Academy Awards for the films of 1975. And the reason that I was watching them at that point, I think I was probably, I don't know, at the time, I would have been 8, I think. 8. And it was because that was the year that Jaws was nominated for Academy Awards. And that was the first time that I wanted to see a movie win. And that was the first time it didn't. Spoiler alert, it didn't. I think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest won the year of Jaws. And then Rocky, I think, won the year after. I think. I could be wrong about that. And then, of course, the next year, Logan's Run, which I had a vested interest in. I thought, well, that should have won Best Picture. Of course, It wasn't even nominated, but it did win an Oscar for Best Visual Effects, which was fantastic. So the Oscars have always been this sort of deeply personal thing to me, um, that I've enjoyed myself. And over the last couple of years, actually probably more than the last couple of decades, really, I've been always going over to my friend Steve Melching's house with our group of people, our group of friends. We watch the Oscars together, and we have Oscar ballots, and he makes food, and we drink wine, and talk to each other about all those things. And it's fantastic. I mean, the Oscars are really, I mean, let's face it, if you're working the film business or you're at all interested in movies, the Oscars they really are sort of the biggest night of the year that comes together as this sort of celebratory thing. And even though the Oscars have made many missteps this year, I still get excited for them. Like, I still, like, you want to watch the Oscars. And there's I think over the last, I don't know, the last decade, maybe, I find my interest in the actual films sort of waning, because in my mind, the movies that were always nominated for Oscars were these big, sprawling, like when Gandhi won. A lot of people are like, Gandhi, but I remember going to see Gandhi, and it was one of those, I felt to me like a chore, like, ugh, I'm going to go see this Oscar bait Gandhi movie that's 4 hours long or whatever. But yet I was completely entranced by it. I love Gandhi. And to me, that's what a Best Picture was. A Best Picture should be this sort of larger than life, encompassing all of the great human truths. And it should celebrate what cinema is all about. It should be just a gigantic entertainment. That's kind of, in my mind, what I always thought the Oscars were. Now, in the last couple of years, we've had movies like The King's Speech or Moonlight, which are terrific movies. But in my mind, they're just smaller films. Now, they are still dealing with the bigger human truths, the bigger human realities, but they're not the pomp and circumstance that I believe should go along with a gigantic Oscar movie. I've sort of been missing from the movies, and that's not really the fault of the people that are voting or anything. It's just those movies aren't getting made anymore. I mean, I can't even imagine some studio would spend upwards of 100 million on a movie like Gandhi today. Like, no one's going to go do that. We live in a much different world where franchise films and superhero movies and science fiction epics and things like that are the movies that are going to get made today, because that is sort of what is happening with movies today. Things are just different. Are they better or worse? I don't think it's better or worse. I think just we're in a period of time where this is what we've got going on. And if you had asked me 10 years ago if Black Panther would even get a nomination for an Oscar, I would have been like, no. Are you kidding me? Black Panther? Are they going to make a Black Panther movie that's going to get nominated for the Oscars? So in a way, I mean, Black Panther is, in my mind, the kind of movie that would have been winning Oscars, but it's unfortunately hampered by the fact, look, I don't care what anyone says, there is definitely a prejudice against comic book movies. And when I say prejudice, I don't mean prejudice against Black Panther specifically for any reason. I mean a prejudice against the entire genre. Science fiction, fantasy, horror, certainly comic books fall into science fiction and fantasy, are marginalized genres. They're just not. They're not people's go-to genres. Now that's changing, because people like us, these members of the post-geek singularity community that you are, have gotten older, and you take science fiction, fantasy, horror, and science fiction as seriously as movies like Gandhi, or a personal favorite of mine that no one else seems to like, The English Patient. In fact, The English Patient has been openly mocked on television. I think there was a Seinfeld episode mocking The English Patient. Everyone I know is like, that's so boring. I love The English Patient. I love it to death. I could watch that movie over and over again. There's nothing about it I don't like, but it's just a different kind of a movie. So I'm deliriously once again excited to see the Oscars. It's always a fun time. It's always fun to see who wins and to see how everybody gets dressed up, despite all the ridiculousness and the controversy surrounding the Oscars. It's still a great day, and it's still one of my favorite days of the year, and I can't wait. And today, of course, I believe the Independent Spirit Awards are on, which I also love. I love the Independent Spirit Awards because that's more along the lines of, if I ever won an award, it would be an Independent Spirit Award. I don't know if I'll ever do that, but hey, maybe Tango Shalom will win. I don't know. it's a fun day all around. The whole weekend is fun. If you go to the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills, like if you go there tonight, the night before the Oscars, or maybe it's the Friday night before the Oscars, it's packed with celebrities. That was a secret that when I first moved to LA, I heard, like, if you want to go see celebrities, go to the bar at the Four Seasons, you know, right off Robertson. Is it off Robertson? Maybe it's off. Is it off? I don't remember. But the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills, it's right off Burton Way. And you can see many, many celebrities. Sorry, everybody that's probably going to be in the bar tonight. Sorry that I've let the cat out of the bag, but it's kind of an open secret here in Los Angeles. So it's fantastic. And look, have the Oscars disappointed me? When I was a child, I didn't understand why the 1978 Oscars, why did Annie Hall beat Star Wars for Best Picture? You know, wasn't until later when I watched Annie Hall and realized what a wonderful film it actually was. You know, that to me was phenomenal. Some of my favorite films, you know, The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2, each won for Best Picture. Amazing. Clockwork Orange was nominated for Best Picture, didn't win. And of course, what a triumph at the 2004 Oscars for the 2003 films to watch Return of the King sweep the Oscars. What a great Oscar ceremony that was, having worked on those movies. The first time I ever saw Return of the King was actually in Peter Jackson's house, in his screening room. It was a very early version of the movie while we were working on the Two Towers extended version special features. We all got called to Peter's house, sat us down, and showed us an early version of the film with all of the endings. If you think Return of the King has a lot of endings now, it had even more before. You got to see Legolas return to the Woodland Elves, and you got to see Gimli reinstated in Moria. I think it was in Moria, with his kin, and it was amazing. So to see, it was so gratifying to see Return of the King win. Anyway, that's it's just a great time. So anyway, I figured this would be sort of an open mic. And I've never done an open mic here. I mean, they always turn into open mics, but I figured, why not just start talking and see what you guys have to say. So I'm going to see what you have to say. Joseph Eric says, "Hey Rob, I got into collecting figures. Got so far Iron Man Mark 43 6 scale, nice. Batman Justice League statues on the way. Rick Grimes 6 scale statue is on the way, as well as a T800. Did you get the T2?" T800. Hot Toys did a great, they had a line for a while called their DX line. They haven't done anything in the DX line for a while, but they were figures where even the eyes moved, and they did a great Terminator figure from Terminator 2. Really, really great. So good luck. I'm glad you're collecting. And oh, you say, by the way, thanks for giving me a hard time getting a bootleg figure, and then in your last chat admitting you got those yourself. Yeah, well, you know, I can't come out and be an advocate as somebody who's making entertainment and who owns certain IPs. I can't be an advocate in stealing stuff. I'll tell you a funny story. Well, it's not really funny. I guess it's kind of funny. In 2005, I went to Israel. I was invited to go to the Icon Festival in Tel Aviv, which was great. I went with Roger Nygaard, who made Trekkies. I was actually in Trekkies 2. And if you watch the special features, my ex-wife and I are on the special features for Trekkies 2. And so I went to Israel. Nobody would go with me. I tried to get people to go, and everyone's like, I'm scared to go to Israel. I'm like, so Roger Nygaard and I went, and everywhere I went in Israel, people came up to me and they're like, you know, we illegally download a lot of stuff. I mean, that's not offensive to you, is it? And I would always ask the same question. I'm like, well, is what you're torrenting legally available in your country? And usually the answer was no. And my answer to that was, well, then you got to do what you got to do. If they're not making something commercially available for you, and yes, technically it's stealing. And I don't believe in any kind of, look, John Schnepp will tell you he lost millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars, for people, our community, the Post-Geek Singularity community, illegally downloading his movie, The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened. And it really depressed him. It really bothered him a lot that he worked for years making this film, and that his own people, you guys, everybody was downloading his movie for free and costing him literally millions of dollars. He kept track of all these torrents and he went after them, and it made him really depressed that he It made him depressed that his movie was being stolen, that people could, because it was independently produced, and he wanted to make more movies, and he self-financed that film with the help of donors, and then he put his own money into it, and then people just stole it because nobody thinks that that's stealing. But especially for us, the independent look, torrenting and illegal downloads have literally killed the indie horror market, the low budget indie horror market. It's impossible unless you're Blumhouse to be working in those films, and it's a bummer. It's a bummer. But if something's commercially available and it's not commercially available in your country, I can't. What can I say? I mean, if you want to see it, you got to see it. Like, I've been a person that's I've been buying media from all around the world for the 39 years I've been buying home entertainment media. So I'm always ordering things from other countries, and I might have the original versions of Star Wars maybe in 4K. I don't know. Might have them. Don't know where they came from. They just happen to be sitting on my server. Go figure. So, but anyway, I can't support illegal downloads or buying bootleg figures. But listen, if a toy company or if a studio is not licensing someone to make your favorite figure, and there's a toy company putting out, say, the Carl Urban Judge Dredd as a beautiful 6-scale figure, I want that figure. I'm going to buy that figure. I'm not going to hold to my principles and be like, that's a bootleg figure, so I'm not going to buy it. My thought process is, like, if no one's going to make it, I want to get it. And if somebody's making the figure, they're not look, no one's getting rich off making bootleg action figures. They're doing it because they love action figures. That's it. I mean, you can buy, like, I worked, of course, on the Axanar films. You can buy all of the Axanar Starship models in 1/1000 scale. Even the Vulcan ship that was in my Vulcan scene that Tobias Richter created. You can buy a model kit of that. You think I didn't buy that shit? Come on. I wanted one. So anyway, Rob Irvine says, this is not on topic, Oscars, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Orville. Well, Rob, I like the Orville a great deal. I think the Orville's great. I really enjoy it. I mean, as I said before, I think there's been a lot of personal stories this year, and I understand they're probably trying to keep the costs down because they want the show to go on. So there's been a lot of what are called bottle shows, where they shoot on the existing sets to keep the budget down. And they're trying, and I have not watched. Somebody said this week's episode's a doozy, and I always catch up with it on the weekend. So I'm looking forward to watching that probably tonight. But I am caught up with the Orville up through last Thursday's episode. I haven't watched it. I did watch the Manifest season finale, which I've talked about, which is just horrible. I hate watching Manifest, and the finale of the first season of Manifest is the finale, as I said on Twitter, of my hate watch of that show. I will never watch the rest of that show. They lost me. But yeah, I do like the Orville. Wake Me Up When We Get There House says, I've seen all of the movies nominated for Best Picture. Green Book is by far my pick for the Oscar. It's a lot of people's pick. I think it's a front runner. I think it has a big competition in Roma, which is certainly not for everybody. But what a great piece of personal filmmaking Roma is. Beautifully crafted, wonderful movie. But Green Book, it's also very, very, very good. And great performances in Green Book. Now, Mahershala Ali, I think, is probably going to win the Best Supporting Actor award. To be honest, I really, 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 really want Richard E. Grant to win. I love Richard E. Grant, and no one has enjoyed being nominated for an Oscar more than Richard E. Grant. If you follow him on social media, the sheer joy he's brought to his Oscar campaign and all the appearances that he's made. There's Gilbert, everybody. What a great thing for him. I'm very excited for Richard E. Grant. I hope he wins. But Mahershala Ali, what a performance. Joe Flick, JLO Flicks. You're always here. Thanks for being here, man. You're a good man, Robert, and I have a lot of respect for you. Thanks for a great platform and a safe space for us creative visionaries. You know what? I don't usually like the term safe space, and I'll tell you why. I don't think that intellectual discourse or collegiate education should be safe. Education and discourse should have an element of danger to it, because you've got to be careful and mindful of what you say. I appreciate what you're saying in terms of space here. I think this is what I want is to have. I think what a safe space should be is a place where we can share ideas, all ideas. Everybody can share their ideas without fear of persecution or being yelled at or screamed at or whatever. I mean, I understand what you mean by safe space. I don't like the idea. I mean, I went to college. I went to the Evergreen State College because it was a little, it was like a crunchy, chewy granola school that you didn't get grades and you had to take responsibility, more responsibility than normal on, and it was tough. I was kind of terrified, but that's what college to me was about. College is about confronting your own mediocrity, and hopefully you'll be a better person by going to college and meeting your fellow students and learning how to encounter ideas and people that might be difficult for you. To me, that was the whole point of college. It sort of prepared you for the world. I think it's just odd that these universities have become a place. I was watching Gad Sad on. He's a guy teaches up at Montreal. He's a biologist that actually uses human biology to study marketing. It's very interesting, but he's a firebrand, and a lot of people don't like him. And he's always going after political correctness on college campuses, and I think rightfully so. Safe spaces. Look, I get it. I understand that everybody doesn't want to be in an area where they're persecuted or anything like that, but that's the point of college. You're supposed to be able to confront ideas that you don't like, and you're supposed to understand your own ideas. It helps you hone your own beliefs so they will be well stated. You don't have to scream and yell to combat beliefs that you don't like. You can use a scalpel instead of a bludgeon, and you can use your intellect to, instead of shouting down people you don't like, you can use your intellect to calmly eviscerate anybody who you disagree with, who's an asshole. And that's, to me, what it should be. But anyway, yes, I do appreciate the sentiment of this being a safe space. I'd like to think it is, Let's see. Botrek says, I've been watching the Oscars since 1998, and Billy Crystal should host more often. Yeah, he was great. I love those openings with Billy Crystal. Terrific openings. I want to see, are the rumors true? Is Whoopi Goldberg going to come out and be our secret Oscar host? You never know. That'd be pretty cool. We shall see. Botrek says Franco and Hathaway were the worst. Yeah, that wasn't a good pairing. But kudos to them for trying something different. It might not have worked, just like Rob Lowe singing that Snow White number wasn't great. But yeah, at least they tried. Hey, Vesna's here from Bosnia. Hello, Vesna. I'm a little sick. Uh-oh, don't be sick. So this is a good way of spending a Saturday evening at home. Uh-oh, I hope you feel better. But it is cold and flu season after all around the world. So I would imagine it's cold there where you are. So feel better. 2053 Krypton says, hey, Rob, have you seen any of the films by the late and great filmmaker Satoshi Kon? Oh, Satoshi Kon is an animation director. And Satoshi Kon, he Perfect Blue, right? If I'm right, I'm thinking he made Paranoia Agent, Millennium Actress, Perfect Blue. First of all, Perfect Blue is coming out on Blu-ray next month. So Perfect Blue is finally going to be on Blue. I love the films of Satoshi Kon. If I'm remembering correctly, Perfect Blue and Millennium Actress are incredible. And Paranoia Agent is one of my favorite animated series of all time. So if you guys haven't seen any of his work, delve into it. He passed away a couple of years back, and it was a bummer that he died. Mike Bodden's here. He says, get well soon, Vesna. And everyone's talking in Serbo-Croatian here, so I can't read that. Remember, Serbo-Croatian, there's one Serbo-Croatian movie in America called Hey Baba Riba that I love, and I have to always go on IMDb to get the actual Serbian name whenever I'm talking to somebody, or the Yugoslavian. It was a Yugoslavian film before the breakup of the Balkan states, but it's great. I saw it in the 80s. I love it. Venice Beach Sports Network is here. What's up, man? You building anything cool this weekend? That's a good question. Am I building anything cool? Well, I did it as I've spoken to you guys about before. David Miller of Sirius Model Rocketry, Sirius spelled like the star. After a long dry spell, I had bought in 2008 a 5-foot flying model rocket of a Saturn V. And this is, of course, the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, July 20th, 1969. This July 20th, 2019 will mark the 50th anniversary of the landing on the moon. And yes, people, we did land on the moon. You can now see moon landing sites. And I'm very excited. I needed, to be honest, as I spoke about, I fucked up the engine mount when I was building. About 2 years ago, I got on this model rocket Jag. I had bought a lot of model rockets back in 2008 that were just sitting around. I did not build them because I built Estes model rockets when I was a kid, and I found some of, they were called upscale versions. So this company called, oh, it's too bad they haven't been making rockets, but there's a company called Q Modeling, or there was a company called Q Modeling that specialized in making upscale versions of Estes model rockets, and they made upscale versions of two of my all-time favorite Estes model rockets: the Andromeda, the Starship Andromeda, and the Mars Snooper. And I spent so much time building my Mars Snooper. It was perfect. If you go on the Rocketry forum, there's a thing called the Rocketry forum. You can see, I mean, I built it back in 2008. I mean, it was perfect. I used Tamiya metallic reds and metallic blacks to paint it. It was an aluminum. It was awesome. And it got destroyed in a move. Something fell on it. I was very, very upset. But I built the Andromeda, and I built it's. I should have brought it. I didn't know you were going to ask this question. I should show my rockets. Want to see my rockets? I have the Sirius model rocketry made a rocket called the Interrogator, and I built they have their own upscale. You have the Interrogator, or you can get the Interrogator G that flies on a G engine. So, but what I want to do is get back into, I got the pieces I need because I screwed up building the Saturn V. I screwed up building the engine mount because it's a huge, the engine mount alone is gigantic. And in order to fly the Saturn V, you need a FAA waiver. That's how, because it looks like if you fired it, it would read as a missile on radar. So you have to call the FAA and go, this is not a missile. I'm flying a model rocket. So this year I'm going to finish my Sirius model rocket, Sirius Rocketry's Saturn V rocket that I'm very much looking forward to. It's 5 feet. I might work on that because I'm really excited because he finally sent me the pieces I needed. He replaced what fucked up. And if you guys check it out, go to Sirius Rocketry and write David Miller, the proprietor of Sirius Rocketry, write him an email. Even if you don't buy anything, just take a look at what he's got. He's great. And tell him that I sent you. Tell him that Rob Burnett sent me to your website. Even if you don't know anything about model rockets, go to Sirius Rocketry and look at his wares. Look at how big his Saturn V kit is, and look at. I cannot recommend the Interrogator G highly enough. And he's got this other rocket called the Cestris, I think, which is like a space liner. It's awesome. It's great. And he does normal. There's 3 forms of rocketry now. There used to be just one. Like when I was a kid, there was Estes model rockets and Century model rockets, and you had A, B, C, and D engines. Well, that's what's called now low-powered rocketry. Then there's mid-powered rocketry, which is E, F, G, H. That's mid-power, and then there's high-powered rocketry, which you have engines like M. And these are things you have to like. There's an event outside of San Diego. I think it's called Plaster Caster, where they take over this place in the desert and the ceiling is like 35,000 feet. So you can launch rockets up to like 35,000 feet, which is insane. But I love it anyway. So I'm going to jump back into building my Saturn V rocket because I really want to finish it. Midnight's Edge After Dark is here. I say the Weinsteins ruined the Oscars when they started buying up Best Picture. What Midnight's Edge is saying about that is that the Weinsteins exerted an extraordinary amount of control over the Oscars. Famously, Shakespeare in Love won Best Picture over Saving Private Ryan at the 1998 Academy Awards. Now, I loved Shakespeare in Love. I think Shakespeare in Love is a better movie than Saving Private Ryan, but it was a Weinstein film. Miramax, yes, because Miramax they worked from a bully pulpit, and but their films were usually terrific movies. They produced obviously Pulp Fiction. They produced many Oscar-bait films, and there's Gilbert. He doesn't like the Weinsteins anymore either. Of course, Harvey Weinstein turned out to be one of the great pigs and basically the instigator of the Me Too movement. So yeah, but that's not to take away from the very talented filmmakers who worked on those films because they're terrific. And I love Shakespeare in Love. Danny Pearson says, hello, everybody. Hi, Rob. I saw the Power Rangers Beast Morphers trailer this morning, and it is More phenomenal. Can't wait till next week on Nickelodeon. Activate Beast Power. Who else is ready? You know what, Donnie? I'm in. I'm gonna catch up with that shit. I want to see what more phenomenal, more phenomenal. I love that. I'll tune in. You know, I do like. Here's the thing. I like Power Rangers when they would buy old Japanese series and use the visual effects and then reshoot live action. I loved all that. That was always fun. Botrek says Best Picture winner was Shawshank Redemption. Oh wait, yeah, man. Can you believe that Shawshank Redemption? It should have won. Should have won Best Picture. God, I love that movie. Who do you think will win? I think Reese Williams says, who do you think will win Best Actor? I hope Rami Malek will win. It's a tough, I think it's a two-boat race, as we say, as we Unlimited Hydroplane Race fans say. I think the Best Actor award this year is a two-boat race between Rami Malek and, of course, Christian Bale, who is playing our favorite, Dick Cheney, playing him in Vice. Now, again, a phenomenal performance by. It's really interesting that they're both playing, real people. And you can go on YouTube and watch videos of Freddie Mercury, and you can watch that Live Aid performance. And it's an extraordinary achievement. I don't know. I think that, Christian Bale's won before. He also did an extraordinary job playing Dick Cheney. But again, a lot of people have criticized Bohemian Rhapsody. And of course, as many people know, I've been friends with Bryan Singer for 30 years. And I think that there's a lot of people that, to me, Bohemian Rhapsody was a celebration of the band Queen. And Queen's music, and it was not so much a searing expose look under the hood of Freddie Mercury's life. I mean, it did that, but I do think his performance is phenomenal. And for me, it's 50-50 right now. It's 50-50. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see who takes it. It really is going to be interesting to see who takes it. And I don't know who that is, to be honest. Beirut's. Let's see. Haralev. Will you ever come to New York City? Fans waiting. Baruz, well, thank you for that. I appreciate your super chat. Let me tell you, I'd love to. I'd love to come to New York Comic Con or something. I've never gone to a event in New York City. Maybe as part of the Schmodown or something. I don't know. New York is one of my favorite places in the world. Have you seen Sleep No More? If anybody goes to New York, I don't even know if it's at the McKittrick Hotel. I don't know if it's still on, but you got to see Sleep No More. It's literally an interactive play where you run around this warehouse. It's amazing. I loved it. Fantastic. But yes, I love New York, and any chance to go, I will go. Alexander Wilson says, what's your opinion on Spike Lee bashing the Oscars with every 10 years black folks get awards? Do the Right Thing got snubbed as Best Picture also. Here's the thing. Spike Lee is an angry guy who's a very talented filmmaker. And I think Black Klansman was one of the best films of the year. But I think that Spike Lee has every right to be angry. And every year, he's correct. Every year or every 10 years, there's a lot of black films and a lot of black performers that get nominated. And he tends to be overlooked. His films tend to be overlooked. And I think wrongly so. Spike Lee was one of the principal architects of the explosive independent film movement of the late 80s and early 90s, making movies like She's Gotta Have It and School Days, and of course Do the Right Thing. Around the same time, Steven Soderbergh came out with Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and Kevin Smith was making Clerks, and Quentin Tarantino came out with Reservoir Dogs. And, he was and he still is a very important voice in the filmmaking community. And I'm a huge Spike Lee fan. And his anger is not unfounded. I listen to him, and I wish he wasn't as angry as he seems to be, but he has been snubbed, and he is right. And, the way films like black films are celebrated certainly seems a little, something, but look, you got Moonlight, you got 12 Years a Slave. I think, and Spike Lee came from a time when he was marginalized, and there was a lot of racism and dealing with that. I mean, the guy's been making movies for over 3 decades. So I don't like the fact that he's angry, but I understand why he is angry, and his anger to me is not unfounded. Let's see. Alex Von Golem says, "Hey Rob, how do you think mocap performances should be evaluated by the Oscars actors branch for finding best actor worthy performances?" This, my friend, Alex asks an incredibly interesting question. Look, there is no doubt in my mind that Thanos, Josh Brolin's portrayal of Thanos, and Thanos himself as he appears on screen is probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, single mocap performances ever. However, to make that, it's not just him, it's all of the talented artists that have to make the rest of Thanos, everything from his skin color to his chin to his eyes, all of those things are animated. And I'm torn because, as many of you know, I worked on the Lord of the Rings discs, and one of the things that I did all the interviews for, with the exception of Andy Serkis, was Gollum. So I spent months literally interviewing everybody involved in the creation of Gollum, and as I've talked about before, they had to figure out, it was called at the time, maybe they have something new because it's been on 15 years. They had to create this thing, an algorithm or a program where they could recreate the translucency of skin, and they called it subsurface scattering. So if you look at your skin, you can see through it, right? It's not solid. Well, how do you do that? At the time, to create realistic skin, this was not part of the mocap performance that Andy Serkis so brilliantly delivered from Gollum. This is completely a visual effects and animation problem that was solved that had nothing to do with Andy Serkis's performance. Sure, his performance was the basis of Gollum. They couldn't have done it without him. But there was just as many talented animators and others working to bring that character to life. And it's only become more sophisticated today. I mean, look at movies like The Jungle Book, where actors are they're acting out animals. But if you're doing motion capture, if you're doing Baloo and say The Jungle Book, the final Baloo is not a human being. You might have had an actor performing. You can look at Andy Serkis playing Caesar. It's extraordinary. But Andy Serkis doesn't look like a monkey, a chimpanzee. So it's a very interesting, we're facing really interesting philosophical questions. Look, one of the things I love about the future is how we're all going to come to grips with things like gene editing, designer babies, whether or not we should vote actors, Academy Awards for mocap performances. These are intellectual and ethical and really interesting questions that are going to dominate the discourse as we move forward as a species. And I'm not making light of that, but it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting to see where we're going with all of these things. But I think it's a question that I'm torn, because it is an actor that is the basis of that performance. But I mean, maybe an actor, maybe it could have its own Academy Award. I think a mocap performance should have its own Academy Award, where you have the animation lead and the actor share the prize. It should be and I firmly believe this. Now that I just came up with this idea right now. They should have a new Oscar category, the same way in 1981 they created the Academy Award for Best Makeup Effects, in which Rick Baker, I guess it was the 82 Academy Awards, where Rick Baker famously won the first award for his work in An American Werewolf in London, which was extraordinary. So maybe that's what they do. Maybe that's the solution. Have a new Oscar category for motion capture, and you would have the animation lead and the actor celebrate that with a new award. Topher Rocks asks, I'm pulling for Jon Anik for editing. Oh my God, so am I. The Live Aid sequence alone is astonishing. One of my favorite scenes and endings ever. Singer, actors, VFX did a great job. I agree with you. That was the first scene they filmed in the movie, was the Live Aid sequence. At the time, Brian was sending me, there's a scene where the camera swoops out into the audience, and he actually sent me that camera shot. It was pretty neat. But I love Jon Anik. Is one of my favorite people in Hollywood. There's no kinder, gentler, more talented person than Jon Anik. I mean, he is freaking phenomenal, and he's the key to the success of Brian's movies. I mean, Jon Anik is the unsung hero of Bryan Singer's films. He not only does he edit, he composes the music, and what he did, the way he used the original Queen tracks, he went in there and pulled out vocals, and used vocals only and did all kinds of things. I mean, he just did a phenomenal job. There's nobody more deserving in Hollywood to win that Academy Award than Jon Anik, and I am pulling for him. Topher rocks. I cannot wait. I'd love to see him win that. Clayton George says, the only times I recall strongly from the Oscars are Robin Williams singing Blame Canada from the South Park movie, and Martin Landau's winning speech for Ed Wood getting cut off before he could thank Bela Lugosi. Yeah, I know we have a tendency to remember those Oscar screw-ups, but I was just happy to see Martin Landau win an Academy Award for Ed Wood. How great is that? I think it's great. Let's see. Vesna says, Return of the King was the last time I saw the Oscars live. Really? That was a while ago. Let's see. 666. I get it. 666. I get it. That's good. I like that. I would love to have seen Legolas Return to the Woods. I did. I saw Legolas Return to the Woods. I don't know. I guess they didn't include those as deleted scenes. You know, it's really sad. Warner Home Video, Peter Jackson and Michael Pellerin, they went back to Warner Home Video and they wanted to do the definitive, make another documentary that would be the definitive experience of Peter Jackson making the films. And Warner Brothers said no, which is really a bummer. The studios are not paying for special features because it's just a bummer. It's too bad. Wake me up when you get there, huh? Says Rusty, it just doesn't work for me. It feels like a patchwork quilt. Pieces put together that don't really flow from scene to scene. I'm not sure what you're referring to because that was from something else, so I apologize for that. Fellowship of the Ring deserved it more, I think. Yeah, maybe, because Fellowship of the Ring was astonishing because it created this world and the way they did hobbits and Gandalf, and it was amazing. Totally amazing. Lawrence of Arabia is my favorite Best Picture winner ever. Return of the King, close second. Yes, good call on that. I think that's good. Seth, you were correct. Seth Owen said that, and he is correct. I agree. Let's see. Abdul is here. Abdul from the UK. Hey, Rob, if the new streaming service by Warner Brothers announced a new DC Batman show, do you think it would be a huge appeal and it would service the brand? Probably. You know, I think what's great about these new streaming services is that they're going to create some amazing entertainment for us, which is fantastic. And look, all we want as consumers is to get great content that serve us, the post-geek singularity community. That's what we want. We want to see good shit. I loved Umbrella Academy. I know John Campea wasn't as enthusiastic as I was, but man, the Umbrella Academy I thought was incredible. The cast was incredible, and boy, does it get bonkers. And what an ending. Wow. I'm not going to say what it is, but man, oh man. I mean, if you've read the comics, you might have some insight. But I think this is one case where the TV series exceeded the comic book on which it was based. And please announce a Umbrella Academy season 2, because man, did I love that. It was kind of like a punk X-Men sort of, but yeah, it was wild, man. It was really wild. And the implications are wild. Pre-live teaser asks, should Edgar Wright do another comic book movie? I think Edgar Wright should do another movie, period. It's funny. I did not love Baby Driver when I saw it. It was just too twee. I thought it was not, maybe twee is not the right word. It was trying so hard to make you love it. But you know what? I just felt that way the first time I saw it. And this is why I always like to see movies again. I went back and watched it later, and I'm like, you know what? This movie's really fun. Yeah, it's good. I liked it. So I love Edgar Wright's movies, man. I loved Hot Fuzz. I loved Shaun of the Dead, and I love World's End. I mean, yes. So he should absolutely do more movies. Eugene Keeler. I wonder if, Eugene, you are related to Edith. Robert and John live at the same time. Are we? Uh-oh. I'm always doing that. But you know what? He has many more subscribers than I do. So tell your friends, subscribe to me. Crixus Maximus says, pre-live teaser. Clearly, the Telosians did monitor the Enterprise and probably other ships, since they had enough range to reach the starbase, and they absolutely sent the lure signal to the Enterprise. Man, I don't know why I missed this conversation. What of course, pre-live teaser or Crixus Maximus is talking about here is, of course, the Star Trek episode The Cage, which later became The Menagerie, the first pilot of Star Trek, famously not used by NBC and brilliantly used by the Star Trek original series team to create the greatest 2-part episode in Star Trek history in my mind, even better than Best of Both Worlds. But it was great stuff. Let's see. Aaron Johnson says, "Hey Rob, have you seen any of the Mel Brooks films? My favorite is Spaceballs. All the characters hilarious. Man, I've seen most of them. Of course, you go watch Blazing Saddles. Man, that talk about a politically incorrect movie that probably wouldn't get made today. Blazing Saddles, man. Go watch Blazing Saddles. I even like To Be or Not to Be. I did not like Robin Hood Men in Tights. Of course, Spaceballs is pretty much a classic, although I didn't like it making fun of Star Wars. It seems funny for me to say that now, but I was too serious. Geek with the Side of Nerd says Netflix bought the rights to The Wandering Earth. I know, right? How cool is that? But you got to go see it in IMAX 3D, which I have not done yet. The King of Scotland asks, Rob, how does international box office like China affect writing in Hollywood? English is the most expressive, complex language on the planet, far more than Mandarin. Is Hollywood dumbing down dialogue? I don't think so. I just think that I think the kind of movies, look, the Chinese market, it's an emerging market. It's a huge market. It's massive, and they love movies. So look, this is, again, we're just in an evolutionary period where, as we always are, economics are changing. Some people fear globalization, but in terms of Hollywood and entertainment, there's nothing wrong with appealing to the Chinese audience. I mean, that's why they love their Transformers movies and they love science fiction films. And look, American films, like if you're doing a When Harry Met Sally, it's not going to travel to China because so much of humor is colloquial and local. So, I wouldn't expect a movie like When Harry Met Sally to travel well to China, but that doesn't mean it can't. But I don't think there's a conscious effort to make movies that appeal to the global market, certainly. But I don't think that there's any change in people dumbing down dialogue. There's always been bad dialogue in movies. So, yeah. Hey, Willow is here. Willow Yang is here. Willow Yang is like my favorite person that comes and visits us because she tells me funny stories. And, of course, she brought up something very interesting that I was talking about last week, earlier in the week, which I loved. So Willow is here. She's, just want to say hi. I'm trying to follow both you and John's open mic simultaneously. It's not working out well. Mine's better. No. By the way, it's John Campia's birthday. Everybody go tell John Campia that I told you all to wish him a happy birthday. Everyone, John and Rob, same time. The hardest choices require strongest will. You should guys go in between and tell everyone, go to John's live chat and send him a birthday super chat and tell him Rob Burnett said to send you a birthday super chat and to say happy birthday. So there you go. And I call you Chinese Deadpool. Maybe you're Korean Deadpool. It looks to me Chinese Deadpool. You could be Japanese Deadpool. One day I'm going to learn your name because you're sending me a super chat from the UK, I would imagine. So I love that. By the way, that circular Deadpool face, I love that so much. Richard Ford says, coverage about Alita Battle Angel describes how the tech of making animated eyes was advanced for that film, like the creation of Gollum spurred other innovations. Yeah, that's the great thing. One of the things that James Cameron has always been doing for the film industry is he's been doing R&D all the way back to The Abyss with the whole pseudopod sequence. That technology was what led to the T-1000 in Terminator 2. So it doesn't surprise me that they're on the cutting edge. Of course, Avatar was astonishing in what it did for 3D and IMAX technology. Amazing stuff. And he's doing the same thing with Alita Battle Angel. I mean, if it's really interesting to go back and look at the first Alita Battle Angel trailers where the eyes were bigger and further apart, and Alita was really deep in the uncanny valley. And if you watch the trailers that subsequently followed, they changed her face over the course of production during post, and they made it much more realistic. And it's really interesting. Pre-Live Teaser says that Spike's best movie is Summer of Sam. A good movie to be sure. I really like The 25th Hour too, but you know what? Do the Right Thing to my mind, it's really groundbreaking technically, and it was really, really well done. Joseph Eric says, I remember the first time I saw Rami Malek in my favorite TV show, 24 Season 8. Yeah, I know, right? Crixus Maximus says, too bad Claw got whacked in Black Panther. Would have been cool to see more circus in the role. I would have liked to have seen that too. I really love Andy Serkis. I met him a couple times. I look forward. A friend of mine, actually, Gabe Bologna, the director of Tango Shalom, has written the next movie that Andy Serkis is directing. It's called Brundabar. Brundabar is an opera. If you look up Brundabar online, it's a very, very interesting story, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the movie. Pre-live teaser asks, will Wonder Man be introduced into the MCU? He must be the coolest hero ever. For those of you who don't know, yes, Wonder Man is an Avenger, and maybe they could. Definitely, he's a big gun in the Marvel Universe. Why not? Bright says Gilberian cameo, or was that Skippy? I think it's Gilbert. Gilbert's having some water now. Bright says Umbrella Academy is a damn good watch. It is. Scandalous says, I like that, Scandalous with a K. Wow, WB said no to the definitive edition of LOTR. I wore out my extended edition set from watching and probably watched the bonus material 4-1 over the movies, and I watched them a lot. Well, that's great to hear. I worked on those very, very, very hard, along with a great team of people under Michael Pellerin and Jeff Curdy. That was some fun. I mean, the basically the 3 years I worked on those was so much fun, traveling back and forth, and terrific. Silent Thriller says, just watched Umbrella Academy today. What a ride. What a ride indeed, right? You just never know where that's going to go. Right, Gilbert? What do you think, buddy? Come here. Come here. Come on up. Come on. Come on up. Come here. Want a cookie? Well, let's give Gilbert a cookie. Maybe he'll join the conversation. Come here, bud. Want a cookie? Come on, dude. These are your organic cookies. He likes them. Come here. Come on up. There he is, buddy. Okay, you got to get close to the mic. I love this. Listen to him cook or chew. Come on, put your head up. Isn't that the best? It's like Gilbert AMSR. Here, have another one, buddy. Gilbert the Gilberian from the planet Gilbar. It says that right on his thing. Oh, you want another one? Here. How great is this guy? And as everyone knows, we first called him Truffaut, and he was Truffaut for 5 days, but then he was clearly not a true. You're not a Truffaut, buddy, are you? You're really not. What do you know about French cinema? Not much. He didn't know who Truffaut was. So yesterday marked the 1 year anniversary where we changed Gilbert's name from Truffaut to Gilbert in French, but he's Gilbert in English. So Gilbert has existed now we've had him for 371 days. I've owned this dog. Right, buddy? Yeah, dude. He's a great dog. He's the first dog I've ever had. I grew up in a cat household. He doesn't like to hear that, though. Let's see. Crixix Maximus says, oh, wait, I just checked. He's voicing the Joker, at least on the animated series. Oh, I don't know who said that. Clayton George asks, now that the Umbrella Academy and Doom Patrol are a thing, I'm really, really looking forward to The Boys and hoping for Transmetropolitan and a accurate version of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Man, Clayton, you said it, dude. All of those things. I mean, first of all, can you believe we got Doom Patrol and Umbrella Academy? And The Boys, if you haven't read The Boys, man, basically The Boys is about a bunch of, basically a gang that goes after superheroes to kill them. I can't believe we got an adaptation of that. It's amazing. It's incredible. And Transmetropolitan, I've got those absolute editions. I love Transmetropolitan, and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen would make a great series. Oh, I'd love to see that. To see Alan Moore's great League of Extraordinary Gentlemen adapted into a series. Crixus Maximus says, Rob, if you didn't like Spaceballs, it's not that I didn't like Spaceballs. He says, how about a Galaxy Quest? I love Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest is great. You can't go wrong with Galaxy Quest. Mercer Create, oh my God, the Orville this week. Oh my God is right. Everybody keeps saying that. Don't spoil it for me. I don't know what happens. I'm going to watch it. Yes. Writer BL Alley says, History of the World Part 1. I love History of the World Part 1. Young Frankenstein and High Anxiety. All of those movies are great. Those are all Mel Brooks films. They are classics. And yes, High Anxiety is so good. Actually, all of the History of the World's good. And if you haven't seen Young Frankenstein, if you haven't seen Young Frankenstein, you got to watch Young Frankenstein. You really do, because it's amazing. Jake Damon says, what are the ins and outs of the legality of crowdfunding a fan film? Well, that's That's hitting the nail on the head. Is it a case-by-case basis? I'm interested in getting a Star Wars fan film funded, but I don't want Disney coming after me, Yeah, I don't know what the legality is with Star Wars fan films. People have crowdfunded, but you really look, having been through the whole Axonar debacle, the lawsuit, I would say if you're working with someone else's IP, don't crowdfund. Especially if you do a Star Wars thing, you might wind up making a lot of money and drawing the attention and ire of Disney, which you do not want to do. So, honestly, if the Axonar experience taught me one thing, it's don't crowdfund using someone else's IP. Yeah. Pre-live teaser says cyborg or mech toys. Well, it depends. I mean, dude, I love Gundam. I love Valkyries from Robotech Macross. I love me some Japanese super robots. The Bandai Soul of Chogokin line can never get enough Soul of Chogokin, man. That's what I'm going to say. So I love them both. Abdul asks another question. Abdul says, I'm a huge hot toy collector and I'm torn between getting Batman armored from Batman v Superman or wait for the Justice League Bruce face, or I get Kylo or wait for 9. Dude, Abdul, buddy, you have hit the nail on the head. So here's the thing about collecting Hot Toys figures. So Hot Toys, they re-release figures. They retool them and they make them better. And so his question is, like, I have to tell you, I desperately want to get the armored Batman from Batman v Superman. It's sold out. You have to get them on the secondary market. You can get the battle damaged one where you can see Affleck's face and all that. And that's cool. But I don't like battle damaged figures because it doesn't give you the opportunity of imagining they're not battle damaged. If that makes sense. But this is tough because, like, if you get the first Kylo Ren, you do not have his face without the mask. And the new Kylo Ren that's coming out has the face and the mask. You can switch them, switch the heads. But then do you wait for episode 9? I mean, what if Kylo Ren, in my way of thinking, is you want the coolest version of the figure ever, and they really didn't change Kylo Ren's. This is the thing that's always bothered me about movies. It's like people never change their clothes. Like, I want to see, why can't Kylo Ren be sometimes in civilian garb, like have different outfits? Certainly they did in Star Trek. They had different outfits. You saw moments when people were in their cabins in like nightgowns or something like that. It's always bothered me. Not that we need to see, but I like to see, change it up. That's why I love the fact in the Marvel movies, they always have they change the costumes around. Like, they go into battle and their costumes change and evolve. And now that we're the Avengers, we'll put an Avengers logo there. But when you're collecting the Hot Toys, it's rough, dude. And I'm right there with you. Like, what do? These are truly problems that only we, the members of the Post Geek Singularity, have. Hot toy issues. We should start a new chat. I'm going to start a new chat. Hot toy issues. Which you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to start hot toy issues. It's going to be an adjunct to Rip with Rob. I won't be as ripped, but I'll have hot toy issues and we'll compare and contrast. That would actually be funny to do a compare and contrast show and get, like, maybe I could get Sideshow Toys to donate both Kylo Rens and we can discuss the ins and outs. I mean, I'm still rocking my Winter Soldier Black Widow figure. Like, I really like the Age of Ultron Black Widow figure with the blue piping, but I haven't got around to getting her yet. The last Black Widow I owned, I had all the Black Widows up to that point, but I'm still in my Avengers display. I'm rocking the Winter Soldier long-haired Black Widow. And, like, I don't like I mean, I love what they did in the movie Infinity War, but I don't, for my toys, I don't want a Captain America doesn't have his, his suit's beat to shit. I don't like that. But these are the questions that vex us. Abdul, I can't help you ultimately, but these are questions. These are rough questions. I don't have the Justice League. I really want a Wonder Woman figure, a Wonder Woman Hot Toys figure. And I really love the deluxe Wonder Woman from Justice League that comes with the cloak, like the furry, the I guess bearskin cloak. I want to get that figure, and you can still get it. It's available. You can get it, man. But we think about this stuff. I know, but you got to write me back. Come back to me. When I tell you, I'll announce that we're going to do Hot Toys issues, and you need to come on. Maybe we'll do a Skype chat live we can Skype in and discuss these problems because these are serious problems. Willow asks again, trust me, you don't want to speak Mandarin like they do on Firefly. No Chinese person will be able to understand you. It's so bad. Still love the show. I had a big crush on Nathan Fillion. That's hilarious. There's probably nothing worse. Like, can you imagine what German people think of all the downfall memes? Like, they're probably going, what? Yeah, they probably are. Maybe not. Clayton George says, all I know for sure is this R.E. Alan Moore's comics. There will never be an adaptation of Promethea since it's so wrapped up in comics versus reality versus dreams that fitting that into a film, probably, you're probably right about that, Clayton. I love Promethea. It's great. If you haven't read that, get the absolute versions of Promethea. They're stunning. Absolutely beautiful. Brian Eng says, Jackie Chan is a native Cantonese speaker. His Mandarin is near unintelligible. Yeah, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what that's like. Geek with a Side of Nerd says, I just want to know. Wait, what did you just say? It jumped ahead. I just want to know where the lap pool is on a Star Destroyer. Hasn't somebody done a cutaway? There's a cutaway drawing. I'm sure there's a lap pool there. Vesta says, when I win a lottery, I'll buy Thor from Infinity War hot toy. That looks amazing. That is a dope. You know what? I really want to get the Gladiator Hulk from Ragnarok, the Gladiator Hulk and the Gladiator Thor, because they can fight. You can do a great display in your where they can fight, because after all, half of action figures collecting is displaying them. That's the big thing. How many people buy DTOF IKEA cabinets to put their figures in? But yes, it's great. Maybe I should do that. I should get Sideshow Toy to sponsor a ROBSERVATIONS hot toy giveaway or something. As long as I can get one too, then I'll give away a hot toy figure. Write into Sideshow Toy and tell them Rob Burnett wants to do a hot toy giveaway. Beatmaster says, Clayton George, WBDC loves to mess with Moore, so they'll take any chance to mess with his creations, and WB now owns ABC. I got to tell you, America's Best Comics, which is another Alan Moore brand. That's where Promethea came out under. Look, I agree. I think Doomsday Clock is shameful, to be honest. I do. And bringing the Watchmen characters into and not giving him credit and having that dispute. I mean, Watchmen's one of the greatest. As much as I love DC, their treatment of Alan Moore and doing whatever they can to keep the Watchmen theirs and not have it revert back to Alan Moore's. Now they've got a new TV series. It's not good. Richard Ford says the attention to Mandarin in Firefly is like the attention to story in Star Trek Discovery. Yes. Joseph Arak says, hey Rob, if you want to say screw you Alec Peters in Croatian, just pronounce Jebise Alec Peters. Jebise, how's my pronunciation? No, you know what? I don't want to say screw you to Alec Peters. I don't. I mean, I really enjoyed my time working on Axanar. It was fun. We gave it our best shot. I just hope Alec one day can get over himself and make the movies, because I want to see what he does. I'm curious. PK Olson says, hey Rob, when working, what's your advice for receiving notes from superiors that you might not agree with but reacting well with in the moment? Sorry if you answered this already. That, PK, is a very good question. I worked in advertising in the mid-90s as an editor, broadcast editor. I worked on some CBS News campaigns, and I was what was called a predator, a producer editor. And when you I worked at NBC for a while, and I worked for a network advertising agency. And at first I'd never received notes from a client before. And I would get notes, I'd cut these spots, these 30-second spots. I'm like, this is perfect. And I would turn it in, and I would get these, these really nitpicky notes back. And at first I got really upset by it. I was creatively like, who the hell are you? This is my spot. And blah, 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 and what do you know? And then somebody told me I was given some very good advice. They said, Rob, these spots are not yours. They're the client's. They belong to the client. We're here to service the client. So even though you might be mad about these notes, you don't get creatively wrapped up in your own work. Just make sure the client's happy. And that was advice that I really took to heart. It took me a while. Sometimes you have to grin and bear it. But if something is not yours, if you're working for somebody else, you have to just take their notes and you got to let it go. And you incorporate, because sometimes if you try and incorporate their notes and it doesn't work, they realize that, hey, you were right the first time. So maybe, and I believe that work eventually wins out. Like the right way to do things ultimately wins out if you're dealing with smart people. A lot of time we're not dealing with smart people, which I understand. But really, it took me a while to learn that lesson, but it was a very important lesson that I had to learn, and I did learn it. And you just got to let it go. Let it go. Frozen, let it go. But it's still tough. Bunyan Snipe is here. Hello, Bunyan. By the way, thanks for being a supporter on Patreon. I am writing a spaghetti western with a female lead at the moment, and I'm thinking about crowdfunding to make it. Good on you, man. Just remember, if you're going to crowdfund a movie, the more examples of work that you can show, whether it's storyboards, whether it's script pages, the more you can show, the better off you're going to be. Because if you don't have a track record and you're trying to make a movie, it's really hard to get crowdfunding. But that doesn't mean you can't get crowdfunding. So, yeah. Mark C says the last episode of the Orville is the best Star Trek in years. Dude, people are saying that, man. People are saying that. Mike Bodden says, RE, the Downfall meme videos. I saw that the actor who played Hitler in Downfall, Bruno Ganz, passed away last week. Yes, Bruno Ganz was awesome. And he made some movies with Wim Wenders, one of my favorite movies of all time, Wings of Desire. He played the Angel Demille. And he also starred in Wim Wenders' movie, late 70s movie, The American Friend, which is awesome. But he passed away. Mike Bond says, sideshow toy giveaway on the Burnett Work. On it. Yes, sir. Make sure you get 2. Beatmaster says, they even put Promethea into a Justice League comic. They did. Bunyan Snipe says, I think Alan Moore actually owns Tom Strong and Promethea, but I'm wrong like 90% of the time. Well, yeah. I think he owns Watchmen as well, but they have a deal that if they keep publishing Watchmen and keep it out there, that they can keep publishing it and hold on to it and do things for it. Captain Robert April says, frankly, I thought the movie version of V for Vendetta was a bit better than the graphic novel, if only because they switched the order of destruction of Parliament and the Old Bailey. It's true, they did. I you know what? It was clearer. As much as I like V for Vendetta, the comic, it was a little murky. Rick S. says, hey, Rob, can you talk about what happens to a film once it has completed its run in theaters, where it is sent and stored? That's a really interesting question. Well, first of all, now it's different because now there's no prints. We have what are called DCPs now. And DCPs are files where you make a DCP of a movie, and those files are actually loaded onto a server. And that's connected to a projector, and that's how movies are screened. Now, sometimes you come along, like Quentin Tarantino famously had 70mm prints struck of Hateful Eight. Christopher Nolan had prints made of Dunkirk and prints made of, I think he had 70mm prints made of Interstellar, and of course, his 2001 70mm restoration of last year. So in that case, there's actual prints sent to a theater, which are celluloid prints. But for the most part, in a movie, the prints used to be what are called, get this, junked. So before, that was the term, junked. When they would get, if there was, say, they might have hundreds of prints that they get back, they would throw them away. They would junk the print. They would either destroy it or you throw it away. It became basically landfill. And collectors, there were a lot of collectors that acquired these prints. There's a whole market. There's a whole people. I knew this guy in Seattle. He was a friend of my friend Craig Highlands. He built a movie theater in his house, a 70mm movie theater in his house. He bought these 2 Dutch projectors. He did research. They were made in the 50s. They were these Dutch projectors. They had like the best workings of any projector in the world. He bought 2 of them, restored them, and you could go to his house, and he built this theater in his backyard. Now, he collected a lot of prints, and what happens is when they deteriorate, they smell like vinegar. So half of his neighborhood constantly, you'd go to his house, and half the neighborhood smelled like vinegar. And you get to these where he was keeping his prints, and the prints were deteriorating because film prints don't last, even though celluloid is the best. So here's an interesting thing. They do color set in order to preserve films. Like movies today, a lot of them are finished digitally, so there's no prints. They only exist in the digital space. They can make color separations, not RGB, well, red, green, blue. They do color separations on celluloid, so they'll do 3-strip separations, and they'll come out, and so a movie will be broken into 3 parts, each part representing a different color space, and they'll store those. Those are still the best medium to store movies. And with our digital, movies of the last 20 years, man, depending on where they're stored and how they're stored, most people are not paying to get those color separations made. So that's a big problem. Mark C says, could Sherry Redstone potentially save Axanar once the Viacom merger happens? I don't think so. There's no reason to. They have no control over that. Plus, they've got Star Trek Discovery. I think Discovery actually renders, unless you go back and you say that it's not canonical, and that we are trying to make Axanar canonical. And in my mind, Axanar still is canonical. But I don't think that'll happen. I don't know. Mark C then says, as a Christian conservative, it's nice to find someone who makes you believe that not everyone in the film industry lives in an echo chamber. Well, again, here's the reality to me. Christianity and Judeo-Christian belief it's the foundation of Western civilization. Like you can't understand storytelling until you have an understanding of where our the morality of Judeo-Christian culture came from. And I think that it's okay to be a Christian conservative. I don't understand why there can be such vilification, especially on our. I think the real problem is when Christians are trying to exert political power over others. I think that's where it happens. And then, of course, you could say that, well, the liberal Hollywood is trying to dominate the conversation and espouse their liberal beliefs over the rest of Americans, which is also valid. So it really is my whole thing is, why be cantankerous about it? Why not find a middle ground? Like, for instance, I am pro-choice. I am staunchly pro-choice. I believe in, again, the sovereign right of the individual to choose what they can and can't do with their bodies, period, end of discussion. However, I don't think that abortion then should be treated lightly. I was a person, I told this story when I was in my ROBServations chat about meeting my biological mother, and I'll state it again. I was this close to not existing at all. My biological mother was sitting in the waiting room of a hospital, and she was going to have me aborted, literally have me aborted. And I would have not existed. And for whatever reason, at the last minute, she couldn't do it. And she left. She did not have a second trimester abortion, went home. And now I exist. So, I know the difference, and I know what's going on. But here's what I think that doesn't make a lot of sense to people. Why don't we do as good a job as taking care of people that are already alive? We're so interested in preserving the rights of the unborn, but yet people here are so disposable. But in a way, I think that's the problem. We need people from different belief systems to be able to come together and talk, and come find a middle ground and see where we can meet. R&B, John Price is here. I love John Price. John Price writes great articles. John Price says, R&B, I've legit forgotten that Star Trek Discovery was on the last 2 Thursdays. I think and talk Trek all day, every day, and I forgot there was new Star Trek episodes. Not good. Yeah, after the last Alice in Wonderland, I'm being pulled into the Mushroom Network where there's dead people still alive. I'm like, I can't. I just don't care. Like, maybe I'll go back and watch Star Trek Discovery. I might. People said this season was good. I don't know. All I know is that Manifest is over, so I'm been put out of my Manifest misery. Nicholas Glenn said, thoughts on Cobra Kai. Campia hated it, but the majority of the audience loved it, including me. I thought the writing and the way they honored the old characters and introduced new ones was perfect. Dude, Nicholas, you and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. I thought Cobra Kai was amazing. As far as a reboot, getting the original cast back, and they honored, to me, Cobra Kai was everything about how a reboot should be done. I loved it. I think it was terrific. And that's how, to me, and to my mind, my favorite reboots that I've seen were Cobra Kai and Creed. I thought Creed, what they did with what Ryan Coogler did with Creed, brought back new characters, new situations, and still honored Rocky Balboa and all the Rocky movies. I mean, got Sylvester Stallone an Academy Award nomination. How crazy is that? I mean, that's the way these things should be handled. Um, uh, Josh Crichton wants to know, Rob, what is some of your favorite music from the 80s, such as bands, music videos, songs, etc.? Well, I have to say I'm a huge fan of Britpop, synth pop. I mean, my favorite bands, The Cure, New Order, Scritti Politti, Prince is one of my favorite artists of all time. I mean, Style Council, mostly all the British bands. I could go. I like Berlin. There was a one-off band called Switchblade Sisters that I loved. Frankie Goes. I'm a huge diehard Frankie Goes to Hollywood fanatic. I love The Cure. I mean, if you want Duran Duran, I'm a huge Duranimal. I love my new romantic music, but mostly all the normal bands of the 80s. People have asked me one day I'm gonna have to go through and bring my these are my favorite 80s records. I loved when Duran Duran kind of split up, and they one side, John Taylor went over and did Power Station, and then Nick Rhodes and Simon Le Bon formed Arcadia. Man, if you want to get a great 80s CD, they re-released. Arcadia only did one album, So Red the Rose, and they released a 3-disc CD of that album. I mean, that album's wacky. It's Simon Le Bon being at his great poetry self, and if you look at that, talk about music videos. I love Russell Mulcahy's Duran Duran music videos. I don't know if he directed the Election Day video, but it's great. And the extended Duran Duran music videos, like New Moon on Monday, go watch the New Moon on Monday music videos. I love that stuff, because I am a child of the 80s, and give me 12 inches. I'm also a huge fan of anything that's on the 4AD label. Cocteau Twins, Clan of Zymox, the first modern English record that has I Stop the World and Melt With You on it. That was on 4AD. The Bauhaus. I love Bauhaus. I love goth music. The original version of Christian Death. I could do a whole 80s show, an 80s music show. Yeah. Mark C says Star Trek Discovery episode, The Sound of Thunder, in space. Go Pet Shop Boys. I didn't mention Pet Shop Boys. Opportunities. I've got the brains, you've got the looks. Let's make lots of money. I love the Pet Shop Boys. I mean, the Pet Shop Boys even did an album where they scored Eisenstein's Battleship Potemkin, I think, which I think I bought, but I haven't listened to. Nicholas Glenn says, I wish the writers of Cobra Kai would have been involved with the new Star Wars movies. This is a raucous chat. This is funny. Doomcock mentioned. Nicholas says Doomcock mentioned you on his live stream last night and likes your points on Discovery. I appreciate that. I like Doomcock a lot. He's very funny. Josh, now I'm on an 80s music jag. Beastie Boys, Paul's Boutique came out in the 80s, end of the 80s, in 89. One of my favorite hip hop records ever. That album is genius. Talking about hip hop, Eric B. and Rakim, the Wu-Tang Clan. But man, do I love Paul's Boutique. Just Plain Steve says, I know you like Star Wars and Star Trek, but what about the other Star franchise? Stargate. I'm a huge Stargate fan. If you watch the movie or any of the TV series, I love the Stargate feature. And I'm privileged enough that we record the Inglorious Treksperts podcast in Dean Devlin's offices at Electric Entertainment, which is very cool. But I love the Stargate movie. I'm not so. I haven't watched the Stargate TV shows. I am behind on those, so I do apologize that I am behind on those shows. Collects. How can someone watch Cobra Kai if you don't have YouTube Red and don't live in the U.S.? Why don't they make it available in other formats, Netflix and iTunes? I believe that they probably will. I can imagine. I mean, look, YouTube Red is another streaming service that wanted to attract viewers by having Cobra Kai, and it was good. I mean, but it's tough around the rest of the world. I mean, look, we want our entertainment whether people talk about the New World Order and all the conspiracy theorists, we're all going to get chips and stamped with 666 and the number of the beast or whatever. But the fact of the matter is we're all human beings on planet Earth, and we have to start thinking globally because our planet is affected globally. You know, even if we're polluting the environment, that means it's being polluted over in Calcutta, India as well. So I feel the same way about entertainment. We got to start thinking about it globally. But then again, you know, everyone fears the global domination of people like Netflix and all that, but that's the way it's going. I would like to see, like, I know Netflix shows more Indian material, more Bollywood stuff. I would kind of like to see like an all Bollywood channel. There is one, I know, but I more that's easily accessible. Vesta says, Robert, do you think Warner Brothers will release a new extended version of Lord of the Rings for the 20th anniversary? Would Peter Jackson be for that? They might. I mean, you know, they could. I would like to see a 4K upscale if they could do it. I think that'd be great. I can't believe it. Like 2021 is going to be the 20th anniversary of Fellowship of the Ring. Oh my God. Oh my God. Pre-live teaser says, yes, 80s music, R&B. You know, it's really funny. Like, I'm a total, as I said, Frankie Goes to Hollywood fanatic. Holly Johnson, the lead singer of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, who's still recording his own music. I used to go back and forth with him on Twitter. I want to like do a chat with him. I should contact him and do a Robservations chat with Holly Johnson. I mean, that'd be awesome. I'll tell you a funny story. One day I was, you know, when we were making Free Enterprise, I scored the original Free Enterprise. I temp tracked it with all of my favorite 80s music. And when we had it all for festivals. So when Free Enterprise went to festivals, it had all of this 80s music. And when we had to go change our festival, like when you have music and you want to have a song in a movie, you can have what's called a festival license. And then if you're going to sell the movie to distribution, you have to re-up that license and make it a commercial license and pay more money. Well, when we got back, when we finally sold the movie for distribution, we had to go back in. The music that I'd put in the movie would have cost $1.5 million. And that was more money than the movie even cost. And luckily, Network Records came on board and Network America. And what was cool is they put out our Free Enterprise soundtrack album. So they wanted certain network artists to be on the soundtrack. So I was able to get a techno band called Manufacture. They did a song that Sarah McLachlan sang, and that's on the soundtrack. And they were the same label that put out like Skinny Puppy and MC 900 Foot Jesus. And I was a big fan of their record label. And then they actually put out the soundtrack. And I only had $100,000 for my music budget on Free Enterprise was $100,000. And I needed to get songs. I had to get The Cult, and the record company wanted The Cult, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Duran Duran, and Shriek Back. So I got to put the Underwater Boys. I got to put She Sells Sanctuary, the long version. I got to put Welcome to the Pleasure Dome and the night version of Planet Earth on the album. And each one of those songs was $10,000. 10 grand. So I only had 60 grand left to put like 80 songs in the movie or something. And it was a kind of a bummer. Mark C says, I still have a crush on Susanna Hoffs of the Bangles. What a beautiful, talented woman. Who doesn't have a crush on Susanna Hoffs? Man, you know what? I want every day to be Manic Monday. Because, yeah, Crixus Maximus says, you 70s and 80s guys had awesome music. Been listening to a lot of Pointer Sisters this weekend. Really? Have you been listening to the Neutron Dance? That was in Beverly Hills Cop. By the way, that's a great song, especially if you watch it in the context of the movie. If you've never seen Beverly Hills Cop is one of the greatest 80s action comedies ever. It's a seminal film. You all should watch it. It's great. Hey, I have to stop this lovely chat. What turned out, I thought it was going to be another short chat. I actually have a conference call with my potential sound designer for Tango Shalom at 1:00. See, we never stop. We never stop working here on the Burnett Work. We're always making something because, after all, filmmakers make films. Let's see. 80s. Jake Rivers says 80s movies were some of the best era ever. Yeah, I agree. Captain Robert Abel says the Bangles need to do some good cover songs to remind folks they're back together. That could be. I love the Bangles. I love their Hazy Shade of Winter, their version of Hazy Shade of Winter that was in 1987's adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis' seminal novel, Less Than Zero, even though that movie was a disappointment. Bunyan Snipe says Videodrome. Yes, I love Videodrome. Clayton George says one last time, Latveria forever. That's, of course, the country, the fictitious country ruled over by Victor Von Doom. I love that. Bunyan Snipe says, is Sokovia actually Latveria? I always thought it was. In my mind, Sokovia is the Sokovia Accords, the Latveria Accords. Why not? If they do bring Doctor Doom into the MCU, and you know they will, they have to have him like that. You find out Latveria is the actual name of Sokovia and changes it back, kind of like St. Petersburg in Russia used to be what, Leningrad, and they changed it back. So there you go. So everybody, thanks for being here. And as I say in all my chats, remember, everybody you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. All you have to do is listen. So thank you all members of this, the Post Geek Singularity, for being here. I hope you enjoy both the Independent Spirit Awards and the Oscars. I would love to see Richard E. Grant win. And thanks for all the support. Please subscribe on this channel. Please go to my website, theburnettwork.net. Tell people about theburnettwork.net. Watch all of the Axonar documentaries on theburnettwork.net, of which there are 3. You can also download those documentaries. They are open sourced. For everybody who was a donor or at all interested, go to theburnettwork.net and find those documentaries. And don't forget to view Gilbert's page on the burnettwork.net website. Thanks very much. And you know what? I'll come back tomorrow. I'll be back here. This is fun. I like this. Maybe I'll do G finally. My favorite G movies. So, hey, Midnight's Edge After Dark says Beverly Hills Cop is one of my favorite films of all time. Beverly Hills Cop is one of the greatest movies of all time. It's a movie I can quote endlessly. I love it, love it, love it. Mike Bodden says, see you, Skippy John. Do you see Skippy John, Mike? Is Skippy John lurking in the background? Anyway, thanks to all of you for being here. Enjoy the Oscars. Well, I'll be back tomorrow before the Oscars. And enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And if you can, if The Wandering Earth is playing at a theater near you, go see The Wandering Earth in IMAX 3D. If you can, report back. I'm dying to see it. I haven't seen it. It's a bummer. So I'll see you guys later. And take